Alrighty. Welcome and thank you for being here. I'm Dr. Shin, and today's discussion is centered on reframing how we understand inflammation. It's not as something inherently harmful, but it's a necessary and highly intelligent biological response that we have. And in clinical practice, the issue we most often see is not the presence of inflammation itself, but the failure of the body to properly resolve it. And this leads to a prolonged signaling state that can affect multiple systems at once, including energy, digestion, cognition, and hormonal balance. So rather than thinking in terms of strong or weak immunity, it's more accurate to think it in terms of regulation and flexibility. And our goal is not to turn everyone into an immunology expert, but to help you better understand how inflammation and immune system influence your overall health. And by the end of today's session, you'll have a clearer understanding of the difference between healthy inflammation, which is an important part of healing, and chronic inflammation, which can contribute to ongoing symptoms and disease. And we'll discuss some of the most common factors that can disrupt the immune balance, including stress, sleep, gut health, blood sugar regulation, infections, and environmental exposures. And we'll also explore how autoimmune conditions develop and why immune dysfunction is often more complex than simply having an overactive or underactive immune system. And finally, we'll review practical nutrition, lifestyle, and integrative strategies that can help support the immune regulation, resilience, and long-term wellness. All right, so one of the most important things to understand about immune health is that chronic inflammation and immune dysfunction often go hand in hand. Rather than being separate issues, they can feed into each other and create a cycle that's difficult for the body to break on its own. So when inflammation remains active for long periods of time, the immune system may start to compensate by becoming less responsive in certain areas. And this can make it harder for the body to clear infections, repair tissue, or respond appropriately to ongoing challenges. And at the same time, when the immune system isn't functioning optimally, it becomes less effective at resolving inflammation, allowing that inflammatory response to persist. And this creates a self-perpetuating loop where inflammation drives immune imbalance, and immune imbalance further fuels inflammation. And understanding this helps explain why some people experience symptoms of chronic inflammation, such as fatigue, pain, or brain fog, while also feeling like they get sick more easily or take longer to recover. And the goal is not simply to reduce inflammation, but to restore the balance and communication within the immune system so it can regulate itself more effectively. And one of the concepts gaining a lot of attention in research is something called inflammaging, which combines the words inflammation and aging. As we get older, the body naturally tends to develop a low level of ongoing inflammation, even when there's no infection or injury present. This is partly due to the accumulation of older damaged cells that can remain in the body and continue releasing inflammatory signals. And at the same time, the immune system becomes less efficient at clearing out these damaged cells and maintaining healthy tissue repair. And over many years, this chronic low-grade inflammation can place extra stress on the body and can be linked to many age-related conditions, including cardiovascular disease, cognitive decline, loss of muscle mass, and reduced physical resilience. And the encouraging news is that inflammaging is influenced by lifestyle factors. So, nutrition, exercise, sleep, stress management, and maintaining metabolic health can all help support healthier aging by reducing inflammatory burden and improving the body's ability to repair and recover. And the goal isn't to stop aging, it's to help the body age more gracefully and maintain that function for as long as possible. And if there's one takeaway from this section, it's that chronic inflammation is self-perpetuating and the immune system is not broken in one direction. It's caught in a loop of overactivation and suppression happening at the same time. And autoimmune conditions, so that's more common than many people realize, affecting up to 1 in 10 individuals. What makes them complex is that they're not a single disease, but a broad category of conditions where the immune system loses accuracy in distinguishing self from non-self. Women are more frequently affected, and this suggests that hormonal signaling and immune sensitivity play a role in disease expression. Clinically, these conditions can look very different depending on which tissues are targeted, even though the underlying mechanism is similar. And the key idea for patient is that autoimmunity is not an overactive immune system, but a misdirected one. And under normal conditions, the immune system has multiple checkpoints designed to prevent self-attack. These include mechanisms that remove or deactivate immune cells that mistakenly recognize the body as a threat. And autoimmunity occurs when these checkpoints become less effective, allowing self-reactive immune cells to persist and become more active. And importantly, this is not an abrupt failure. It's usually a gradual breakdown in immune regulation over time. And this helps explain why autoimmune disease often develops slowly and can have a long silent phase before symptoms appear. And genetic plays an important role in autoimmune risk, but they don't determine that if you're actually going to have autoimmune disease. Certain gene patterns influence how sensitive or reactive the immune system is, particularly genes involved in immune recognition and regulation. And the HLA system is essentially the immune system's identification system, and it helps distinguish self from foreign material. However, even in identical twins, both individuals do not always develop the same condition, which tells us that genes load the gun and the environment is the one that pulls the trigger. And this is why autoimmune disease is best understood as a gene environment interaction rather than a purely inherited condition. And environmental factors are often what determine whether autoimmune risk becomes active disease. And infections can sometimes confuse the immune system through a mechanism called molecular mimicry, where microbial proteins can resemble human proteins close enough that the immune system begins reacting to both. And chronic inflammation or stress can also amplify this immune signaling in nearby tissues, activating the immune cells that were previously quiet. And lifestyle and environmental exposure, such as smoking or metabolic dysfunction, can also further increase that inflammatory signaling, lowering the threshold for immune activation. And this is why autoimmune flares often seem to appear after a period of physical or emotional stress. And when we look at autoimmunity more closely, it often comes down to a loss of coordination within the immune system. Normally, the immune system has checks and balances that help it recognize what belongs in the body and what doesn't. But when those regulatory systems become less effective, the immune response can become confused. And one factor that contributes to this is the body's ability to clear away older damaged cells. And when cellular debris isn't removed efficiently, proteins that are usually hidden from the immune system can become exposed, increasing the risk that they're mistakenly identified as a threat. And at the same time, inflammatory signal can also become amplified, keeping the immune system in a more activated state than necessary. And as this imbalance continues, some immune pathways become overactive while the regulatory pathways that help maintain balance become weaker. And the result is an immune system that is not only inflamed, but also less effective at regulating itself, creating this condition that can contribute to autoimmune disease over time. And one of the most important things to understand about autoimmunity is that it usually doesn't develop overnight. In many cases, changes in the immune system begin years before symptoms or a diagnosis appear. And researchers have found that autoantibodies can often be detected long before someone notices any signs of disease. And symptoms tend to develop only after enough inflammation or tissue damage has accumulated over time. And this is why early attention to immune health, lifestyle factors, and inflammation can be so valuable. And supporting immune balance before significant symptoms develop may also help influence the course of disease and overall health outcomes. So, autoimmune disease is best understood as a multi-layered process rather than a single breakdown in the body. And it develops through a combination of genetic predisposition, environmental triggers, and gradual changes in immune regulation over time. And rather than appearing suddenly, it often builds slowly, where immune tolerance is quietly weakening. And this is important because it shifts how we think about prevention and care and not just reacting once disease is fully established, but identifying patterns early on and supporting immune balance along the way, which is why here at Sklar Center, we always do labs that are looking for autoimmune markers. And if there is something that comes back abnormal, we can do additional functional labs that can also help check for those. And then, so immune dysregulation is rarely caused by just one thing. As we know, more often it develops from several body systems interacting in a way that gradually shifts the body out of balance. And major contributor is chronic stress. And when the stress response stays activated for too long, it affects how the immune system communicates and can reduce its ability to respond in a precise and well-regulated way. And the gut is another key player since the microbiome and its metabolic byproducts directly influence the immune tolerance and inflammation. And in addition to that, prior infections and ongoing environmental exposures can also further the disruption in the immune balance, especially if the body's ability to resolve inflammation is already weak. And this is why addressing only one area can lead to partial or temporary improvement, and we really have to work on the whole body. And more lasting results usually come from supporting that multiple system together, so the body can restore overall regulation and resilience. And so nutrition plays a foundational role in shaping our immune function because every meal acts as a signal that influences that metabolic and inflammatory pathways. So diet rich in fiber and plant diversity can support that production of short-chain fatty acid, which are critical for maintaining that immune tolerance and promoting inflammation resolution at the cellular level. And in contrast, diet high in refined carbohydrates and ultra-processed food can contribute to oxidative stress and persistent inflammatory signaling. And the clinical focus is not on perfection or restriction, but rather on consistency in reducing inflammatory load over time. And these cumulative dietary input can gradually shift the immune responsiveness toward greater stability and resilience. An important distinction in integrative medicine or naturopathic medicine is immune modulation versus immune suppression. So rather than simply turning the immune system down, many botanicals can help improve that immune regulation and support the body's ability to resolve inflammation appropriately. And many of these compounds can influence the key pathway involved in chronic inflammation, including NFKB and COX2 and oxidative stress signaling. And one of the compound or one of the herbs that we like to use is curcumin, which is an active compound in turmeric, and it's one of the most well-studied anti-inflammatory botanicals. And research shows that it can help regulate NFKB, so nuclear factor kappa activated B cells, and reduce the inflammatory cytokines such as tumor necrosis factor and interleukin 1B and 1 and 6. And curcumin also support antioxidant defense, and it can also help promote more balanced immune response. The next is boswellia, and this works through a different pathway by inhibiting the 5-lipooxygenase, which reduces production of inflammatory leukotriene. And research suggests that it can also help support conditions involving chronic inflammation, including joint, gut, and respiratory concerns, while supporting the healthy tissue function. And many of the adaptogens that we use, such as ashwagandha and rhodiola, their role is to really support the stress response through the HPA axis. So since chronic stress can disrupt that immune function and increase inflammation, adaptogens can help improve that resilience, support cortisol balance, and indirectly promote healthier immune regulation. And lastly, polyphenols. So those are found in foods such as berries, green tea, cocoa, and colorful vegetables. So they provide antioxidant and anti-inflammatory benefits. And research shows they also help support a healthy gut microbiome and reduce oxidative stress, influence immune signaling pathways that are involved in the inflammation resolution. And some of the advanced clinical therapies, so IV nutrient therapy, which we also do at Sklar Center. So IV nutrient therapy delivers nutrients directly into the bloodstream, allowing for higher absorption than oral supplements. So nutrients such as vitamin C, magnesium, B vitamins, and glutathione can all support mitochondrial function, antioxidant defense, inflammatory regulation, and clinically, IV therapy can also help to support that cellular energy and reduce oxidative stress and just enhance overall immune resilience. And PRP, so that is known as platelet-rich plasma. So that is a concentrated form of patients' own platelets to deliver growth factors that can support tissue repair and healing. So these signaling molecules can help coordinate that inflammation resolution and tissue regeneration. And so PRP is commonly used for musculoskeletal injuries, joint health, and regenerative medicine applications. And infrared sauna therapy, so it uses a gentle heat to stimulate that heat shock protein, which can help support cellular repair and resilience. And research suggests that it can also help reduce oxidative stress, support circulation, and promote recovery. And it's often used to support chronic inflammation, fatigue, and metabolic health. And peptide therapy. So peptides are short chains of amino acids that can act as a signaling molecules within the body. So depending on the peptide, they can help support immune regulation, tissue repair, mitochondrial function, and recovery. And peptide therapy is an emerging field focused on restoring specific biological signaling pathways. So there's a lot of new research on that. And other emerging therapies can include red light therapy, hyperbaric oxygen therapy, and ozone therapy, and they all aim to improve cellular function and recovery. And red light therapy specifically can help support mitochondrial energy production, and hyperbaric oxygen therapy can help enhance oxygen delivery to tissues. And these therapies can definitely help create that healthier cellular environment that can help support repair and inflammation resolution. All right, so this month's focus is immune balance through resolution. So many people think the goal is to eliminate inflammation, but again, inflammation itself is not the problem. So inflammation is a normal and necessary part of healing. And we know that the challenge can occur when the body struggles to turn that response off and return to balance. So And rather than focusing on quick fixes or trying to boost the immune system, I really encourage you to focus on creating the conditions that allow your body to regulate itself more effectively. So this can include nourishing your gut microbiome through a diverse, fiber-rich food, prioritizing quality sleep, managing stress, and maintaining stable blood sugar levels throughout the day. And again, small, consistent habits can have a greater impact than doing a dramatic changes. So, daily walk, adding more colorful vegetables to your meals, improving sleep routine, and taking time for relaxation can all support that immune regulation over time. And as you move through this month, consider where your body may be asking for more support, recovery, or restoration. Because healing is not simply about fighting the disease, but it's about building resilience and creating that internal environment that allows your body to repair, adapt, and also rebuild. So next. All right. Thank you for joining again this month. Do you guys have any questions or comments? And I forgot to update, but next July, so the July webinar is going to be on cardiovascular health and longevity. All right, let me go ahead and stop recording.